Lord, help us to see you more clearly, to love you more dearly, to follow you more nearly, day by day. Amen. In keeping with this evening's theme of lifting up great female composers in our church, in our lives, I want to start by sharing a poem with you that I think perfectly captures part of the theme of Lent and this idea of the distance that sometimes we find ourselves between who God would have us be and who we are, and being reminded of how much we need God to draw us back in. It's called "Who Shall Deliver Me?" God, strengthen me to bear myself, the heaviest weight of all to bear, inalienable weight of care. All others are outside myself. I lock my door and bar them out, the turmoil, tedium, gad about. I lock my door upon myself and bar them out, but who shall wall self from myself, most loathed of all? If I could once lay down myself and start self-purged upon the race that all must run, death runs apace. If I could set aside myself and start with lightened heart upon the road by all men overgone. Guard harden me against myself, this coward with pathetic voice, who craves ease and rest and joys. Myself, arch traitor to myself, my hollowest friend, my deadliest foe, my clog, whatever road I go. Yet one there is can curb myself, can roll the strangling load from me, break off the yoke, and set me free. This poem is from one of the great Victorian-era poets, Christina Rossetti. Christina Rossetti, who is featured in some of our favorite hymns here in our tradition, including In the Bleak Midwinter, one of my personal favorites, Love Came Down at Christmas. Christina Rossetti was a woman who was deeply passionate about finding poetry and words that she could use to touch our hearts and minds and souls, to remind us of two important things. One, that we cannot get through this world alone without the help of God, and that God has a call on us to do important works in this world. Rossetti was an abolitionist, an environmentalist, an animal rights activist. She spoke out against injustices wherever she saw them and called us to be more, to achieve more, to seek justice and love wherever it will be, and to realize that it's a lot. It's a lot to speak up for justice, for the enslaved, for the impoverished, for children, for orphans, for the environment, for animals, for people in need everywhere, to speak up for education, the poor, the sick. That's a lot. Of course we can't do it alone. Of course we need God's help. And so many of her works are about reminding us of our need for God's help to do that work. One of her famous works, The Goblin Market, is an allegory of the Garden of Eden story. Now, not the misogynistic Garden of Eden story where we talk about how woman is responsible for the downfall of man and all the sins in this world. She didn't buy that for a moment. I don't buy it for a moment. You should not buy it for a moment. No, the Garden of Eden story, instead a story about being tempted by the tree of knowledge of good and evil, to think for ourselves for a moment that if we just had the knowledge of good and evil, we could go it alone and we don't need God's help to get through this world. And of course, she points out the foolishness in that. The story is a story about how we can't go it alone. We do need God's help. And we have God's help. And then we are called to go and use that to change the world and to make it a better place. Continuing in the great tradition of Christina Rossetti, that through line runs through of great poets to another more contemporary poet, Miss Eliza Griswold. Eliza Griswold, the Pulitzer Prize-winning writer, daughter of the late Frank Griswold. In her book, Amity and Prosperity, she writes about the one family and the fracturing of America. A reminder to all of us how much we need God and each other to speak up for what is just and right in this world. A reminder that we can't get through it alone. And we need God and we need each other. As we continue in this season of Lent, I want to ask you all, what is that tree of the knowledge of good and evil for you? What is that temptation for you that's drawing you away from realizing how much you need God in your life? To think about it this season of Lent. What is that thing that's drawing you away? And instead, remember how much you need God to get through this world. Remember, you were not called to go it alone. And then to remember that you are called to go and seek love and justice out in this world. Receive the light of Christ in this world, and then go and be the light of Christ in this world. And so I close this with another one of my favorite authors, the Bernadette Farrell, who wrote the hymn, Christ Be Our Light. Longing for light, we wait in darkness. Longing for truth, we turn to you. Make us your own, your holy people, light for the world to see. Longing for peace, our world is troubled. Longing for hope, many despair. Your word alone has power to save us. Make us your living voice. Longing for food, many are hungry. Longing for water, many still thirst. Make us your bread, broken for others, shared until all are fed. Longing for justice, longing for shelter, many are homeless. Longing for warmth, many are cold. Make us your building, sheltering others, walls made of living stone. Christ be our light. Shine in our hearts. Shine through the darkness. Christ be our light. Shine in your church gathered today. Amen.